My name is Nicole Bondoc. I graduated this past May, May 2024 class, and I'm currently a dermatology territory sales representative at Leo Pharma. So my current role is I promote dermatology treatments within my designated territory, which is New Jersey. And I focus on conditions such as atopic dermatitis, which is eczema, and psoriasis. So my role involves building relationships with dermatologists and other healthcare providers, understanding their needs, and also positioning Leo's Pharma's products as effective solutions. So key duties that include in this role are executing sales strategies, staying informed on competition, being informed on our product, disease state, and also just adhering to compliance standards, knowing that the pharmaceutical industry is highly compliant. So I entered the pharmaceutical industry very recently, and when someone goes to me, "What's your typical path?" It looks different for everyone. And for me, I guess my biggest advice for those that want to enter is to get involved at any way that you can. It might say you want to start in sales, your goal is to be in sales. You might not start in sales. So to kind of give you some background on myself, I had two internships prior to before this current role. My first one was in oncology marketing intern at Kyowa Kirin. So this allowed me to kind of have exposure to the pharmaceutical industry from a commercial standpoint. I was understanding and seeing everything from in-house and kind of seeing how our marketing team develops this promotional material for our sales team, which eventually is promoted to our doctors. So for me, I really loved that role. It allowed me to kind of not just know a lot more of the marketing, but I met all the cross-functional teams like market research, analytics, samples, inventory, all of the stuff that encompasses the entire pharmaceutical industry. And so my advice is, get involved in any way you can. And for me, I started in marketing. And that kind of goes into my next internship, which was in sales operations. So I knew I wanted my end goal was to do sales, and knowing that it's highly competitive to break into, especially being a newly grad, I figured, okay, what is something that's going to help me stand out? And I said, okay, let's take a step back. Let's see how things work on in the operational aspects, right? So how does the team behind the scenes support our field team, which is sales? So that's why I took an internship with sales operations. And it was probably the best decision I could have made early on in my career because it allowed me to understand the inner workings, the processes, why, as a sales rep, why do I have to stay compliant with my sample inventory? Right? Like, why do I call on these certain doctors in this particular territory, even though a doctor that I go to is in another territory? It allowed me to kind of understand, why and how the processes go behind the scenes. Because now, as I'm now a rep, I understand things from a different perspective. And it allowed me to have more of a holistic perspective because when you're in the field, it's very tunnel vision because, you're not going into the office every day. You don't see your coworkers every day, right? It's very by yourself. But now that I am in the field, I know, okay, I have a whole team supporting me back home, right? And I know that every decision that I make affects their processes as well. So being mindful, I think, was one of the great I think intentions that I took away from that internship was now I have a deeper appreciation for my team at home. So really, like, my typical path is very different because you have other individuals that do pursue typical B2B sales experiences, such as, sales development programs at like a ADP, Enterprise Card. They're all different ways to get into the industry. For me, I wanted to stay in pharma as much as possible. And that's kind of how I found my way in, was, through these two very different internships, but it allowed me to really add some meat to my resume and also be able to kind of speak upon my experiences and how it can, later translate into my current role. So the skills that are essential for my role, especially being as a sales representative, is strong communication skills, right? We have to be able to communicate to our clients, our doctors, but also, our managers and also our other peoples within our team. And being able to have strong communication skills, I think is, a great across the board in many industries, not just the pharmaceutical sales industry. Having a go-getter mentality, I think is also important too, right? Like I said before, right? You're not going into an office every day where you see your coworkers and, oh, they're working, let me work too, right? You wake up, you make your own schedule, right? And it's up to you on how hard you want to work, right? So I think having that motivation and that self-starter attitude is really important, regardless of the industry as well. And, I would have to credit my background being a student athlete at St. Joe's. Uh, Being a student athlete has helped me so much and not just my professional career, but also my personal, right? I love a schedule. I'm very, very a creature of habit, as you could say. And I'm bringing the same thing into my job right now, right? Every morning I start the same. I look into my calendar, I see where I'm hitting, what doctors I'm going to today, my processes. And that's how I've been since day one. And having, being able to be really strong in time management skills as long as, being able to communicate to other people, what I'm doing, why I'm doing it. And I think that's really those essential skills that you develop in college. And, St. Joe's was a great place for me to develop those early on. So, activities that I say are really important for students to engage to prepare for a career like mine, I would say is, networking. And I know we'll get into that in a little bit, but the idea of putting yourself out there and not being afraid to hear the word no, because you will hear no more than you hear yes. You got to have that thick skin. And when you learn early on how to, introduce yourself to someone that may not know you or may not have even interest talking to you, right? That allows yourself to be more comfortable in those situations, right? And for example, when I used to do waitressing for a while, that was like my first job throughout high school. I got used to, introducing myself and even starting small talk, those conversations. And you don't realize how little goes a long way, right? I started that when I was 16 years old, and now I'm 22 and able to do it to anyone, even if I know that person's head is turned the other way, they're not even looking at me, right? It's like you want to be comfortable to be uncomfortable. And the only way to do that is by practicing. Another suggestion I have is talking to your professors. They are so, so knowledgeable. And, shout out to Professor Minoff and Dr. Tani. They were very, very helpful throughout my career and early on, and even so now. But, speaking to your professors, they know what the industry's like, right? And they have that knowledge and that wisdom of being in it for years. And, you never know who they may know, right? And that kind of goes into that networking, but it's just that idea of not being afraid to talk to people that you might not be comfortable with or people that don't always talk to you as well. Another big advice I give for activities is getting involved in school, whether that's playing a sport, participating in a club. The more you involve with yourself, the more you involved yourself with other activities outside of schoolwork, it makes you a more well-rounded person and a prospective candidate. You can always talk about your experiences as well, right? Like for me, I would say one of the barriers I had was, I didn't have that traditional B2B sales experience. And a lot of those transferable skills that come with sales experience are, communication, being able to hold a conversation. I just talked about, working on a team and also waitressing, communicating with my customers. And that's when you can kind of position yourself and frame yourself in a way that is more unique. And it's also more unique to yourself as well. But I really do believe that, getting yourself involved in school, whether it's doing a club, participating in all of the events that St. Joe's has to offer, it's just going to allow yourself to be able to relay in a job interview or even just, networking with different individuals. So, networking tips that I would give to students, and I will say this quote because I've heard it for a while and it's very true. Your net worth your network is your net worth. So meaning the more people that you have in your, your networking and your circle, the more of your net worth and how more valuable it is for yourself. So if you want to excel in not just this industry, but any, it's so important to network, reach out to individuals, whether it's our alumni network, whether it's current students or current faculty, or, there's so many people that know other people, right? And you never know unless you ask. And my bigger tips are to, utilize LinkedIn and social media networking sites, especially our career and alumni page on LinkedIn, right? You can see a lot of our former Hawks are on that page, and you can see where they work, the companies that they work at. And you can also, be able to reach out to them, right? Like a lot of people have a lot of pride coming from St. Joe's. That's what I used in my first little message, I would say. I was like, "Hi, like my name is Nicole. I'm a current Hawk here at St. Joe's." And there's so many conversations that I have within the first 5 minutes. The word City Avenue just comes up, and it's like, you just can talk back and forth and have that rapport, right? Because when you have a shared experience, it's so much easier to connect with someone. Not only that, they'll want to help you. And I think that's the biggest hurdle to kind of wrap your head around is when you are cold reaching out to these individuals, right? A lot of people want to help because at the end of the day, they were all in that position too, right? They were all, trying to find their first internship, their first job, trying to break into an industry, right? So everyone has been in that position where they wanted to ask for help, or, they were bothering, or, messaging different people that they did not know, or, didn't have any mutuals. But at the same time, right, everyone's been in that kind of position. So it's very full circle when, you get to be able to give that advice to someone that's a few years younger than you and so on. So, just not being afraid and kind of, breaking down that stigma that, oh, like I'm bothering them, or, oh, like I don't want to seem like I'm annoying or pestering them. Like, no, if now is a time to be pushy, it's now, right? You want to show that you're eager. You want to show that you want to put in the work, and you want to meet new people to kind of build yourself up. It'll only help and benefit you in the end. So diversity and inclusion is very important to me as someone who's a minority myself, and was able to be at a great institution that promoted diversity and inclusion. It was really important for me to find that within my first job, or just kind of looking that into companies. And for myself, it's also important to work with different individuals that come from different backgrounds. And I say this because I was one that's, I love to be around people that think the same way. And for me, I'm very like positive, upbeat, and kind of very communicative in that way. I know others are not like that, especially in working in sales, right? Like you have different customers that, might not love the small talk. They might like to just cut straight to it. Just like some doctors, they like to be very facts. They don't like, the fluff of, oh, how's your day and everything, right? So having different individuals around you also just, deepens your understanding of the other individuals, but also just allows yourself to be better, right? Because there's not one way to do something. There's not one way to think about something, right? There's multiple ways to approach a problem, a situation. So when you have yourself surrounded by others that have different thinking processes, it allows you to really come to a solution in different perspectives, but also allows you to kind of challenge your own thinking. It's like, hey, is this a way that I could do it? Or is this something that I want to change in myself? Right? It kind of gives you that gut check moment. But if anything, there's nothing more important than having more diverse background around yourself, because it actually betters yourself too in that way. So as I mentioned before, some of the barriers that I faced entering into this field very recently too, is just highly competitive. And it's, everyone says, oh, this field is competitive, it's competitive. It is very highly competitive in terms of sales experience itself, right? And for me, the way I kind of promoted myself was I didn't have that traditional B2B sales experience that a lot of individuals have. Either if they're post grad, or if they're, been in the field for, or in the workforce for a few years. So for me, I really had to sell myself and position myself in a way where, okay, I may not have the experience, but I'm coachable and I can be taught. And if you give me that chance, and I will be taught the proper way, right? And I don't have any bad habits, right? Because I don't have any sales, quote unquote, sales experience, right? So I don't have the bad habits that some salespersons might have if they were trained at a different institution, right? And that's how every barrier that you kind of face into an industry, right? You want to kind of flip it and frame it as like, okay, how can I kind of use that to my advantage? And for me, that's how I sold myself was, knowing and kind of living in the fact that, yeah, I don't have sales experience. I kind of owned it. But I said, but not only can I learn, I've actually have sales experience. It's not your typical B2B, but I was a waitress for X amount of years, working on my communication skills, customer relationship management. And for me, because I played softball, I did private softball instructions. And for me, when I was trying to build my business, right, I would go up to parents, and that's my cold calling, right? And when you kind of frame and think about, okay, what experiences do I have, and how can I spin that and frame that into how this can relay into the potential job that I'm looking for? And especially, being a student athlete or being involved in clubs, right? Having positions like that, you can 100% spin it and reframe it in a way that, can fit the description of quote unquote sales experience. So, but even to this day, right, sales experience is so important. My biggest advice is anyone, if you're not trying to get that traditional B2B, do something that gets you in some sort of sales because regardless of the industry, even if it's pharma sales or not, I guarantee you'll be selling yourself. And the best example is in an interview, a job interview, right? It's why me? Why should I hire you? Right? So learning how to sell yourself is probably one of the key things to, break through those barriers. So some resources that I recommend for an individual that's interested in this career path or just, being able to try to, how can I better myself before entering the workforce? You might not be able to see it, but I'll say the title and the author. It's called The Power of Patience, and it's by MJ Ryan. And this has nothing to do with business, by the way, nothing to do. But when I was reading this, and it was very recently, about like a few months ago, this was kind of where I was in my job search and I was, in the thick of it. And I was interviewing constantly, but I wasn't getting the job that I wanted. And it was coming to the point where I was choosing between two jobs. It was one that I didn't really want, but I had the safety of that job offer. And I was like, okay, if I just take it, I'll just take it. And the one job that I really wanted, but you'll come to learn not everyone's on the same timeline and corporate timeline is very different than an individual. So I was not getting a response from them yet. And, I was reading this book and learning about the importance of knowing that your timeline is so unique to your own individual and knowing that everything happens for a reason and just have faith in yourself. And I, was able to not accept the job that I didn't want and accept the job I did want. So it just comes to show, right, that when you practice patience, it's probably one of the hardest things that we have, but we don't do, right? Like every single day, we have the opportunity to experience patience, right? But sometimes we don't do it. And, when you start to do it little in your everyday, right? And it comes to as simple as, if you're driving and, it's a yellow light, you're not rushing through it. You just, okay, I'll just sit there. I'm not trying to rush to get to class, 20 seconds earlier, right? It's more of just like those little things you start to realize, okay, when it comes to the bigger things, like I'm, stressed about my job situation. I don't have a job or I don't have an internship or no one's reaching out to me. It's knowing like, okay, take a step back. Someone will. And when they do, the timing will be perfect. And this book has honestly saved me. It is really great. It's one I recommend. It's a very short and easy read. But in terms of other resources that I would use as well is I mentioned LinkedIn, but if you want to be more individually specific towards the pharmaceutical industry, I would use medreps.com. this is more geared towards individuals that are in the pharmaceutical slash medical devices healthcare industry. They do job posting, internship postings, and they also just have a lot of individuals giving advice, learning how to navigate the interview process, how to, talk to doctors, sales workshops, etc. But on top of that, I know LinkedIn also does provide a lot of certifications within sales, even just like professional like learnings. So I would say the more that you get yourself involved in certifications like that, I know St. Joe's offers some too as well. Anything that can kind of build up your resume is great options as well. So if I were to look back and what I wish I heard when I was a student at St. Joe's that could have helped me pave my way into the industry is really trusting in yourself and your experience. When you're in the bulk of it and you're getting a lot of those rejections, there's a lot of no's, it's really hard to lose sight on, what you have and who you are and what you can bring to the table. But I just realized and it came to fruition when I had that, that dream job that I'm currently in now. It's more of just trust what you have because maybe, X, Y, and Z might not want it or they might not think you're right for the position, but A might. And that person might be, the saving grace or the one that really sees you through and just trusting what you got, right? Like you have a lot more to offer than we give ourselves, right? We're our hardest critic. We don't give ourselves grace as much. But if you kind of take a step back and think, okay, how would my best friend talk about me, right? Like think about something like that. Don't think about all of the hard, negative stuff that we constantly think of with our negative self-talk, but, flip it into a positive. How would I want to be spoken about in that way? And, there are going to be times where you're going to put in all the hard work and you're going to put in all your effort and you still might not get the outcome you want, right? But that's what life is. And, if I've learned in my little experience of, job searching was, I was putting in a lot of effort and, I was probably applying to like 30 plus jobs and I would get one or two callbacks, right? But that one or two callbacks ended up being my job now and I'm so grateful for it. And, just knowing that when you trust your skills and who you are and you believe it will happen, I believe it will definitely happen. And, at the end of the day, it starts with you, right? No one's going to do it for you. We can, lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, right? So the amount of effort you put in is that's all you know, and that's how you're going to get out. So just trust yourself, put in the hard work, and I bet you it will work out for you.